Hi, welcome to Bookie. Today we will unlock the book The Origin of Wealth. The book attempts to answer one of the most important and oldest questions in economics: what is wealth? How is it created, and how does it grow? Let's hear a story first. On a field trip to a remote village in Kenya, Eric Beinhocker, the author of this book, came across a Maasai elder. The elder brought Beinhocker home and asked him about his financial strength. "How many cattle do you own?" asked the elder. "None," Beinhocker replied. The old man looked regretful and confused. He felt sorry for the guest's poverty and wondered how such a poor man could afford to travel so far and have an expensive-looking camera. Later, when talking about his family, Beinhocker casually mentioned that one of his uncles once owned a herd of cattle. At that moment, the old man no longer looked confused. He finally understood that the guest from afar was able to travel because of his rich uncle. This amusing misunderstanding made Beinhocker realize that different people have different definitions of wealth. The Maasai measure wealth by the number of cattle. You might measure wealth in dollars, euros, pounds, or other currencies. In the early days of human society, salt, seashells, tobacco, and sugar were all used to measure wealth. But wealth in these cases, whether measured in physical or monetary terms, is measured in quantity. But Beinhocker points out that wealth can also be measured in terms of economic complexity and diversity. For example, let's consider the wealth of the Yanomamo, a hunter-gatherer tribe that lives along the Orinoco River on the border between Brazil and Venezuela. Their annual per capita income is about $90. This is considerably less than New Yorkers' annual per capita income of $36,000 in 2001. Put another way, New Yorkers' income is nearly 400 times that of the Yanomamos. So we can see that there is a massive gap between the Yanomamo and the New Yorkers in terms of wealth. There is also a huge difference in terms of the types of things the two groups can buy and use. Retailers often use stock-keeping units or SKUs to measure the number of different types of items sold. For example, 5 types of blue jeans would be 5 SKUs. By that measure, there are no more than a few thousand SKUs in the Yanomamo economy, compared with tens of billions of SKUs for New Yorkers. So the wealth gap between Yanomamo and New Yorkers is not just nearly 400 times in number, but millions of times in terms of economic complexity and diversity. Beinhocker points out that the Yanomamo's wealth level is similar to that of our ancestors 15,000 years ago. That means it took 15,000 years for human wealth to grow from thousands of SKUs to tens of billions of SKUs. But what is striking is that for most of these 15,000 years, the increase in human wealth was so slow that in 1750 the world's GDP per capita had only reached $180, barely twice the level of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. In the 250 years since then, however, the world's GDP per capita has increased 37-fold to $6,600. In wealthy cities like New York, the GDP per capita is even higher. More than 97% of human wealth has been created in the last 0.01% of history. Hearing this, you may wonder, why is there an explosion of wealth? What forces have driven this explosion in wealth? The Origin of Wealth answers these questions. The book traces the history of economics and explains the forces behind wealth growth through the lens of complexity economics. In this Bookie, we will unlock this book in 3 parts. Part 1: Traditional economics doesn't have a good explanation of the origin of wealth. Part 2: Understanding the true origin of wealth through complexity economics. Part 3: The evolutionary forces that drive the creation of wealth. Over the past few decades, economists have become less and less trusted by the public. A poll conducted in Britain posed the question: when the following groups of people talk about their field of expertise, which ones do you trust the most? Politicians came in last with just 5% of the vote, while economists did not do much better, coming in